Welcome to the Inside Story. I'm Billy Hollowell, and today we're diving into the issue of anti-Semitism. It is spreading around the globe, but we're going to be looking at some differences between the ways that British Christians and American Christians view both the Jewish people and Israel. I'm joined today by Samantha Kamen from the Christian Post. How you doing?
Doing very well. Thank you for having me.
So, you have a very interesting story on these differences when it comes to British Christians. And one of the things that was found in a recent survey was that British Christians were less likely to have a high opinion of Jews. Can you explain what is going on here?
So, this new study was conducted in December 2024. It was compared with data from a similar one that was conducted in March 2024 that focused on American Christian attitudes towards Israel. But the findings in this study found that 58.5% of American Christians have a favorable view of Jews compared to 50.6% of British Christians. Now, breaking it down even more, when participants were asked about do Jews still talk too much about what happened in the Holocaust, 22% of American participants agreed, but 33% of participants in the UK agreed, even more. So the co author of both studies, Kirill Buman, said that Americans are more likely to interact with Jews in work settings and in social life, as well as in religious settings. That's why you're seeing these perspectives from in such a difference between how British Christians and American Christians look at Jews. And he said that frequent interactions with Jews, exposure to their beliefs, often correlate with a strong support for Israel. But, and this is worth noting, the study found that in both countries, this idea of dual loyalty is one of the most widely accepted anti Semitic attitudes. So, 46% of British Christians and 33.6% of American respondents said that it's probably true that the Jews have dual loyalty.
Yeah, wow, there's a lot to unpack there. Yeah, I think it's interesting that British Christians are also less likely to express support for Israel itself, right? So it's not just, and that kind of speaks to what you were just talking about there, this dual loyalty issue. What talk a little bit more? You mentioned who was behind the research. Talk a little bit more about who that is and their sort of involvement in these issues more generally.
So the study was released by Chosen People Ministries. The actual research was conducted by a different group, but the ministry is this global nonprofit that seeks to evangelize Jews. And so I was talking with the president of the organization, Mitch Glazer, and he was talking about how he really wants to help Christians bring Jews to Christ, and accept Jesus as their savior. But that's a very difficult thing to do if Christians hold these anti Semitic views. So, one of the things he said is that the results that we were seeing from the UK deeply concerning, and it shows what the future could look like for American Christians if they don't stand with the Jewish people and combat anti-Semitism.
Yeah, I mean these misconceptions and the idea that anybody could be talking about an event too much that was so horrific. We've also seen numbers in other surveys, at least one last year, that seemed to indicate that a lot of young people were very confused about the Holocaust, didn't really know if they thought it was true. Even that was a really disturbing survey, and there were different opinions on the data. But the point is, there seems to be a lot of confusion around these issues, which needs to be cleared up, to your point, because there are ramifications to that misinformation and that lack of understanding. What do you believe, and what do the researchers believe might be driving these trends?
So Kirill emphasized dual loyalty. That is the viewpoint that often leads people down a bad road to other anti-Semitic attitudes. So if you believe Jews are inherently disloyal or their loyalties lie with a foreign entity, that can reinforce other stereotypes. It can often lead to thinking like, oh, well, Jews control the media, they control politics. And once you see Jews as people with conflicting allegiances, then when anti-Semites use them as scapegoats for all these other problems, oh, it becomes so much easier to accept that. Other issues, there's lack of education about Israel, history behind its dealings with Hamas, which is a terrorist organization. There's also Christians who maybe are trying to just find a moral equivalency, saying like, oh, well, both sides are bad. But when I was talking with Mitch Glazer, he said that no, Israel and the Jewish people, they're trying to survive right now. And he really urged Christians to pray for Jews and let people within their local Jewish communities know that they're praying for them, because this was Hamas just launched an invasion against Israel on October 7th, caught them by surprise. massacred innocent people, abducted innocents as hostages. And Glazer really emphasized that Christians need to be with the Jewish people.
Yeah, I mean, these events, there's no moral equivalency, and yet there seem to be a lot of people trying to draw a moral equivalency between Hamas and the Jewish people, and between Israel and the leaders of Hamas, and it's very interesting to watch, especially after such a horrific assault and attack like that. There's so much there to break down, but why? And you just spoke to this a little bit. Why is it important for people to understand these trends? And in particular, one thing maybe you could speak to this because I know the researchers did give some reasoning. Why? And I think the bigger question is why are the British Christians less likely to have a high opinion of Jews and of Israel? What is it that differentiates them from the American Christians?
So not only was there that uh, little interaction compared to American Christians, it also comes down to your beliefs about God's covenant with the Jewish people. So nearly half of American Christians believe that, yes, that is still valid and it still applies today, compared to just over a third of British Christians.
You know, it's interesting that we're sitting here having this conversation. I mean, it's almost unbelievable how much time has passed now, and yet this war is ongoing. There are ramifications, and you spoke a little bit about this, but I was starting to ask you this in the last question, but I want to conclude with this because I think it's incredibly important that as Christians, right, and also as journalists and people who cover these issues, that we have accuracy and that we present the right information to people so that they can make proper assessments of what they think is going on here. Why do you think, as somebody who's covering these issues, it's so important you continue to look at research like this, highlight it, and help people understand some of these key issues and differences when it comes to Israel and the Middle East more generally?
Well, I think Mitch Glazer put it best. He had said how he's experienced some of the things that the survey described. And, as a Jew, he's someone who accepted Christ, but, he's still considers himself Jewish. And, when the Jewish people are attacked, he feels it. And it really hurts him when Christians are in any way anti Semitic, or if they express support for terrorism, especially when you look at the Bible and you see how closely connected the stories of Christians and Jews are. And that's me speaking, not so much Mitch Glazer, but Christians should be able to recognize that the Jews are God's chosen people, and anti-Semitism is wrong. We're meant to oppose it and protect the Jews. And if we want to be able to share the gospel with Jews, or at least help them feel safe and supported, that starts with prayer, and it also starts with opposing anti-Semitism.
Absolutely. And this is why the journalism you do is so important. Samantha, I appreciate your time today. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure.
Everyone else, make sure you head on over to the Christian Post for all the news you need to read, and we'll have the link to this story in the show notes. As for this show, we will be back next week with another episode. We'll see you then.